Hello everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I of course am just another heavy metal maniac, and today I'm doing another discography ranking. Today I'm going over all of the studio albums from none other than Arlington, Texas metal crew Pantera. Pantera for me was an absolutely huge essential band for me getting into metal and really getting into the heavier side of metal outside of, the classic stuff that I was really into at the time, like Dio, Iron Maiden, etc. And yeah, I absolutely love this band to this day. Some of my favorite albums of all time are in this band's discography, and we're going to be going over all of them today, including the Pantera years. Yes, I have some thoughts on those. And yeah, we're only counting studio albums again, no EPs, demolitions, or demos, compilations. Yeah, none of that. Alright, so yeah, without further ado, enough of my ramblings, let's just get into the video. Coming in at number 9, coming in dead last, is their 1983 debut album, Metal Magic. Now, obviously, Pantera started off a much different band than the band that they would become most well known for. And yeah, this is kind of just a product of its time, really, I'd say. This is pretty much just like a full-blown glam metal album. It's a lot of worship and tribute to bands that, these guys were obviously really into at the time. There's a lot of stuff in here. It's like a lot of Kiss. There's a lot of Kiss-like energy on this album. I'd say there's a lot of like Van Halen worship too. Yeah, this could be compared to just kind of like other maybe glam metal releases of the era. Stuff in here that maybe is even reminiscent of like Motley Crue at points. There's even little hints of kind of Judas Priest thrown in the mix, like Stained Class, British Steel era Priest. But I cut them some slack on this album because they were super young when they made this album. Like, Vinny was only 19 and Dimebag was 16 years old, which, Dimebag, obviously guitar god, one of my favorite guitarists of all time. Dude was an absolute beast, and, he's 16, he's ripping shreddy solos and stuff. It's sick. Yeah, for me, the worst part of the whole Pantera era is honestly Terry Glaze. For one, his vocals are not that great. I'm not really huge on his vocals. They don't really necessarily ruin the music for me, but I just am not a fan of his vocals. And his lyrics. I mean, it's glam metal. It's too dumb lyrics, I think, come with the territory of glam metal, but yeah. The lyrics on this album are pretty stupid. Most of the songs are just about, fucking and sucking, so yeah, that's, again, dumb lyrics. So yeah, I think this is easily the worst Pantera album. For what it is, it's not terrible, but, and again, they were super young, so I cut them a bit of slack. But yeah, this to me is just kind of a generic kind of glam metal album. It's not an album I'm going to return to very often, which is why for me it lands at number 9. Coming in at number 8, it is Projects in the Jungle, released in 1984. This album is an improvement on what Metal Magic was, but it's still not my favorite, which is why it's at number 8. There is improvements. Like the musicianship is getting tighter, and I think the production of this album was better. The album cover, while still pretty bad, is not as bad as Metal Magic. That's an improvement there, I guess. And there are a couple songs I think that are honestly pretty good. Like Out for Blood, honestly, I think is a pretty good song. Heavy Metal Rules, it's dumb, but I don't know, I like that song. It's just kind of like a cool anthemic song that I think is cool. And you also have Blue Light Turning Green, which is kind of like Dimebag, just strains his ass off, kind of like, it's like an eruption type thing, And, yeah, still the worst part of this album is definitely Terry Glaze. Again, not big on his vocals, and his lyrics are just dumb as fuck again. But yeah, to me, Projects in the Jungle, this is an improvement on what Metal Magic was, but, it's still far from being the best, Pantera album, which is why for me it lands at number 8. Alright, coming in at number 7, it is I Am the Night, released in 1985. This, to me, is easily the best album of the Terry Glaze era, and this, of course, was the last album to feature Terry Glaze on the vocals. To me, this is the album where they're kind of starting to move away from, like, kind of the whole glam metal sound, and they're kind of embracing more just like a traditional heavy metal, speed metal even type sound. And there's even kind of like hints of like thrash metal on here, which I think gives this album a really cool kind of edge. And there are some songs in here that I think are actually like really good. Like I think the title track is really good. Onward We Rock. Again, it's just like a cool like kind of anthemic song. Down Below is like honestly a thrashy barn burner. Like it sounds like it could have come off like the first two Metal Church albums or something. Like that song is really good. Valhalla is also a really good song. So yeah, and again instrumentally, everybody Dime, Vinny, and Rex are all improving. But Terry Glaze has gotten worse. To me, this is easily the worst vocal performance this band ever had. I compared it to Vince Neil, and I don't want to make that comparison because I'll be honest, I'm not a Motley Crue fan at all, and I think Vince Neil has always been a dog shit singer. So even as best, I always thought Vince Neil sucked as a singer. But yeah, Terry Glaze, he sounds like Vince Neil in this album, and I really just don't like it. If this album had better vocals, I would rank it higher, but the vocals do kind of ruin it for me at points. But again, they are still young at this point, and they're slowly getting their feet under them. Again, they're moving away from the glam metal thing, and they're trying to go for more. They're getting heavier, but Terry, he had to go obviously. So yeah, this was the last album with Terry Glaze. Yep, I Am the Night for me is number 7. I do like it. It's just the vocals kind of ruin it for me at points. Coming in at number 6, it is their final album, Reinventing the Steel, released in the year 2000. Now this, of course, was the last Pantera album before they broke up, and obviously everyone knows the story, what happened later, all that shit that went down in Columbus, tragically. This album, to me, I remember liking it more, like, when I was younger, because I was like, at the time I was, like, really into Pantera, and I was like, yeah, man, this Pantera, this is fucking awesome. But I don't like this album as much as I used to. I still enjoy it, but to me it does kind of sound like the album before a breakup album. Like it just kind of has that feel. It sounds like they're kind of just going through the motions a bit. It sounds like they're just kind of putting out an album just to put out an album. This album doesn't sound as inspired as the albums that came before, frankly. And it's kind of not hard to see why. There was a lot of shit going on, in these guys' personal lives, and they weren't really getting along at this point. So, yeah, and I think they still managed to write some like pretty killer songs. Like "Goddamn Electric" is a pretty good song. "Yesterday Don't Mean Shit." "Revolution Is My Name" is kind of an anthemic song I really like. "Death Rattle" I think is kind of cool. It's like I think "Death Rattle" is the most aggressive song on this album. And "I'll Cast a Shadow" I think is a really good song. But yeah, Reinventing the Steel to me, while I think it's a good album, I just don't find myself revisiting it that often, like lately, because again, it feels a bit more uninspired. It doesn't feel like their heart was fully into it, and this felt like a breakup album, because obviously they broke up shortly after this album released. But it's still enjoyable. So Reinventing the Steel for me lands at number 6. Coming in at number 5, it is Power Metal, released in 1988. This was the first album to feature Phil Anselmo on the vocals, and honestly, I think this is the most underrated album in Pantera's catalog. This is easily the best of the kind of the glam Terra years, but honestly, this is not even really glam metal at this point. Like, this album to me is just full-on heavy metals, and even just like speed metal, thrash metal, and I love a lot of the songs on here. Like, Rock the World is awesome. Title track, Over and Out. Death Trap is a thrashy banger of an album. Burn, with 2 extra N's, is pretty cool. And there's more, there's still some kind of dumb shit on here, but PST 88, it's an awesome song. But, obviously it's about, pussy and Coors Light. It's dumb, but it's good. And it features Dimebag on the vocals, actually. And he does a really solid job. Like, Dimebag's a great singer. He should have sang in that shitty Damage Plan band that he started, instead of that, what was his name, Pat Lackman or something, that just terrible singer. He should have just sang in that shitty Damage Plan band. But anyways, this is a very different vocal performance from Phil Anselmo. He sounds kind of Halford-ish. Like, he's kind of got more of a higher register. He's not really that kind of, he's not really, it's not really the vocals that he would be known for later on. But yeah, honestly, this is a really killer album. It is the best of kind of the forgotten years of Pantera. And yeah, I do really enjoy this album. So for me, power metal, it is a pretty killer album. It's number 5 for me. I don't like it as much as their classic material, I guess you call it, but it is still a banger. Coming in at number 4, it is Vulgar Display of Power, released in 1992. Now, this, of course, is the album where I feel like they kind of fully embraced the groove metal sound, whereas Cowboys from Hell still had kind of a lot of thrash metal vibes on it. This is just kind of pure groove metal. It's just got thick, chunky riffs. It's slower overall, but it still manages to retain a lot of that intensity. And yeah, obviously this is one of the biggest metal albums of the '90s. This album really was a game changer for a lot of people for metal. Like this is kind of the first like kind of true groove metal album, I think, and this is kind of the template for every other groove metal band that followed, pretty much in the '90s. And yeah, some of my favorite Pantera songs are on this album. Mouth for War is an amazing opening track. New Level is awesome. Fucking Hostile is just a vicious and aggressive. I love that song. This Love, it starts off as kind of like a nice, pretty ballad, but then it gets heavy and it's like, nope, it's a spiteful fucking breakup song, baby. Yeah, This Love, I've always liked that song, and By Demons Be Driven is honestly one of their heaviest songs. My God, that song is so good. I put it a little bit lower because even though I do really like it, to me there's a couple filler tracks on this album, namely "Livin' Whole" and "Regular People." While they're decent to me, they don't feel particularly like as inspired. I guess they don't feel as like I don't know. To me, they just kind of feel a bit like filler tracks. But the songs that hit on here hit hard for sure. And yeah, I think this is their most iconic album, arguably maybe even their most beloved album. Yeah, I do really enjoy this album, but well, sorry. For me, it's number 4 just because I like a couple more other albums more. Coming in at number 3, it is The Great Southern Trendkill, released in 1996. This album represents Pantera at their darkest and at their moodiest. This album is, because, at this point, Phil Anselmo especially, he was dealing with a lot of shit, namely kind of, addiction. I think he was having a lot of back problems as well as when his back problems were getting pretty bad. And this album is kind of... So Pantera, when they kind of shifted into the Pantera that we all know with Cowboys from Hell, they always kind of had anger in them. But this album is angry. This album just feels absolutely pissed, mad at the world, just like someone who's dying. This album kind of has the vibe of someone who's dying and is just pissed at the world and just wants to see it burn. Some of my favorite Pantera songs, again, are on this album. The title track, again, just what a vicious way to open up the album. Just, Phil Anselmo just screaming his guts out. War Nerve is awesome. Drag the Waters. Living Through Me, Hell's Wrath. I love that song. Floods. It's beautiful, honestly. Like the guitar solo on that is amazing, and the outro on that song, God, it kind of gives me goosebumps every time I hear it. Floods is just absolutely incredible. It's very dark. It's very moody, but also very beautiful piece. Suicide Note 1 and 2, I like the kind of dichotomy between those two. Suicide Note Part 1 being this very sad, moody kind of dirge, and then Suicide Note Part 2 being extremely aggressive. Sandblasted Skin is awesome. Yeah, I love this album. It is one of my favorite albums of all time, period. This is just an absolutely vicious and aggressive album. Again, I like it a lot for just its darkness and its moodiness, and it's just got a whole vibe that I really kind of dig, because I dig a lot of other bands that are pretty dark and moody. So this album, to me, it really does kind of resonate with me on some level. And yeah, at this point, now that we're in the top 3, I should mention that these 3 going on are pretty much all tied for being my number 1. So they're pretty much tied. And yeah, that about does it. Great Southern Trendkill for me is number 3. Coming in at number 2, it is their 1990 album, Cowboys from Hell. Now, this is the album that represented the shift into groove metal. This is the album where Pantera became the Pantera we all know and love. They completely ditched any like trace of glam metal that was left on power metal is just squashed. and they got heavier. The guitar tone got thicker. Everything is just tight and punchy, and I think this is a really amazing sounding album, like production wise for 1990. I love the way this album sounds. It's got a lot of kind of still thrash vibes on it when they were kind of still they still had when they were embracing more of a thrash vibe on some of their songs in the Pantera years. I think they retained some of that here. But yeah, this is just kind of full on groove metal, and this is again one of the most important, influential albums of the 90s. This really, was a game changer for the 90s for metal in both good ways and bad ways, I think, because I think after this album, this is kind of the album that really kind of caused the downfall of thrash in a lot of ways, or one of the albums. Obviously, there's a few factors going in there, but this was definitely part of it, I think. And man, I just love like so many of the songs on here. Like the title track obviously is a classic. I love that song. Primal Concrete Sledge is just it's shorter. It's very just aggressive again. Psycho Holiday I think is an awesome song. I love the guitar solo on Psycho Holiday. Heresy is awesome as well. And I really like the ballad on here, Cemetery Gates. It's just it's very beautiful again. But it also gets heavy. It feels spiteful, but man, I love Cemetery Gates so much. That's honestly possibly still my favorite Pantera song, Cemetery Gates. I just absolutely love. I love the shit out of that song. Domination, the breakdown on Domination is like if you are not headbanging to the breakdown on Domination, something is wrong with you. Medicine Man is an awesome song. The Sleep is awesome. Clash with Reality, Shattered. I love every song. I love every song on this album. There's not a dud. There's not a single dud on this album. Every song hits, and every song hits hard. Phil Anselmo, I love his vocals in this album. He sounds great. He doesn't sound like Halford anymore, but he just sounds absolutely aggressive and pissed. I adore the shit out of this album, so for me, it's number 2. Again, number 3, number 2, number 1 are all pretty much tied, but this is my number 2. And coming in at number 1, it is Far Beyond Driven, released in 1994. This is still, by far and away, I think, the heaviest album to ever reach number 1 on the Billboard 200. And this, to me, is honestly Pantera at their heaviest, which is also kind of crazy, because this was, their highest charting album. Like, the guitar tone on this album is just fucking nasty, and there's some absolutely just vicious riffs on here. There's a lot of, again, that kind of darkness and that moodiness that they would really embrace a lot more on Trendkill is definitely here. This album's a lot more, it feels like it kind of like got rid of a lot more of the tough guy energy that was present on Cowboys from Hell and Vulgar Display Power, and kind of went for more darkness and moodiness at points, especially like Hardline Sunken Cheeks. Like, my God, I love that song. That song is just very, very moody, and I love it. Strength Beyond Strength is what a way to start an album. That song is absolutely awesome. Becoming, I love Becoming so much. That's an awesome song. Slaughtered is amazing. Throes of Rejection, my God, that song is just spiteful and heavy. But even though this is honestly, I think, their heaviest album, they still managed to write some like great choruses and stuff. They still managed to make this album super catchy. Like 5 Minutes Alone and Unbroken were kind of the two big songs on this album, are very catchy still, and I don't know, I really enjoy both of those songs a lot. And I also love the cover of Planet Caravan, which is kind of a very nice way to end this album. It's just like, the rest of this album is just vicious and pummeling you the whole time, and then it kind of closes off with this very nice, pretty, spacey ballad. And honestly, I think I like their cover more than the original. I don't know if that's necessarily a hot take or anything, but yeah. So yeah, Far Beyond Driven, this is one of my favorite albums of all time. Again, I absolutely love this album. I just love how vicious and aggressive and hostile it is. This, to me, represents Pantera at their absolute best when it comes to songwriting and all that. So, great riffs and everything. For me, Far Beyond Driven is my number 1. I absolutely adore this album. So, that about does it. If you made it to the end of this video, you're awesome, and I appreciate you. Do consider leaving a like, because it helps with the algorithm and all that. Leave a comment down below. Tell me, what do you think about these albums? Do you agree with my rankings? Do you disagree? let me know. Do consider subscribing as well, because I do have a lot more content coming your way. And like I said, that about does it. I'm just another heavy metal maniac, of course, and I hope all of you take care and have a great day. So long.